It is a great honor and privilege to introduce Paulette Fuchs. You were born in Antwerp, and you were known then as Pauline Ruth Mauer Recte Ausubel.
Ausubel.
Can you tell us, and here we're in your beautiful home here in Givat Shmuel, and Paulette, I'm so grateful to you. Can you tell us a little bit about your family and your history and how you eventually came to Israel and how you survived the Shoah?
I was very lucky to survive the Shoah. I was born in 1940. It was still nice times, but things were brewing in Europe. I was born in Antwerp. My father was a cleaver at the diamond boss in Antwerp, and my mother was at home. She was from Poland, came to Antwerp in 1935. My father also came to Antwerp in these years, I don't remember exactly. He came from Germany, from Düsseldorf, where my grandfather, his father, was a shochet. He was a shochet for all the little towns around Düsseldorf. He wasn't only a shochet, he was also a rabbi. He was giving children lessons for their bar mitzvah. He was traveling a lot, and there were 5 children. My father had a brother before him, and then one after him, and they were called Raphael. My father was Shaya, Yeshua. Then came Willy, and then came Rosa. And at the end was Bubi. He was called Bubi, and I just now don't remember his...
Paulette, we have a picture of your Zayda,
Yeah, my grandfather. Yechiel Moach, he was his name. Yeah, Yechiel, no, his name was Israel Meir.
Israel Meir. And were they living in Düsseldorf as well?
They were living in Düsseldorf, and my grandfather had a heart attack in Düsseldorf, and he was buried there. And my grandmother stayed alone with 5 children, yes.
And this is a picture of your grandmother.
My grandmother had a brother in Antwerp and and 2 sisters in Antwerp, and the family in Antwerp decided that they would take the family, my grandmother and the children, to Antwerp. They wouldn't let her be alone in Düsseldorf. So they came to Antwerp, the whole family came. The family, my grandmother's sister-in-law and her sisters decided they would take care of the family, would find them lodgings and give the boys some, they would teach them some profession so they could earn some money. And the smaller children, my aunt and my youngest uncle, were put in school. So they looked after them, and they settled in Antwerp. My father and his brothers learned all what you can learn from diamonds, how to cleave, how to all the trades in diamonds. The family found them some teachers, and so they all worked. The eldest brother, Raphael, that's the brother before my father, he was a painter in his heart. He was an artist. He was an artist, and
these are the paintings?
He went, my grandfather probably, which I didn't know him, understood that this son of his was really an artist, and he went to schools, painting and drawing schools in Germany already, because that's what he wanted to be. And my grandfather probably, I haven't known him, but I understand from what was told about him that he liked all the fine things in life, good music, art, even though being a shochet and which probably wasn't his style at all, but he sent his children, that was told to me, he sent his children to matinees of the orchestra in Düsseldorf, so they would hear good music. And he liked the good things in life. My father, my mother told me that he liked Wagner. And she had to go and listen to Wagner because my father liked that. But that was from my grandfather. So my uncle, Raphael, he became a painter, and he wouldn't go to the diamonds. He didn't want to learn diamonds, but he had to, because the family decided. So he did, but he also went to, they were very nice. They helped him go to a special art school in Brussels. So he got both. The youngest brother, he was a violinist. He was a child when he arrived, and he played already the violin. And he was also sent to conservatorium so he could play. So the family was very nice to my grandmother, because the children were looked after and the family could go on. My father, they all they were socialists, all the children were socialists there, they all went to Shomer HaTzayir. So that's how they came to Antwerp. My mother a little bit before that, they arrived from Krakow to Antwerp. My grandfather, my grandmother, four brothers, four brothers and my mother.
So here's a picture of your...
That's my grandfather mother's side and my grandmother mother's side. My grandfather was a furrier. He dealt in how you call it?
Pelts and furs.
No, God.
Furs and for pelts and coats and...
Yeah, yes, that's what he did. The story goes that he was the son of a rich family in Poland, who had they had earth. They had a chava. How do you call it? Chava is a farm, a big farm with lots, quite a big. I don't know how big, but quite big because they were apparently rich. And so my grandfather, they used to say that he was brought up like a prince.
But you know, Paulette, if you look at your grandfather and your grandmother, they are extremely well dressed, and you can see very like aristocrats.
And they said my grandmother
with the top hat,
and my grandmother was also from a rich family. They also had a chava, and the shidduch was big. My grandfather sold them. I don't know what. That was my great-grandfather used to travel between the chavot, between the farms, and sell, I think, fodder, yes. So he came to that farm where my grandmother was, and he saw her, and she was beautiful, and he said, "She's from my son."
That's wonderful.
And that's how the shidduch. Yes, my grandmother, and she was like, and that's my mother. She was like a princess because they were probably quite rich. I know they were.
And this is in Krakow?
No, they were in a place called near the Czechoslovakian border. My grandfather was from Auschwitz. That's where he was born.
They had a show. It was a town.
It was a town, and I looked up the town from when it was, and you can see a whole quarter who say it's called the Hutterers' housing, which means that there were a lot of them living there from my grandfather's family in Auschwitz. They came all from Auschwitz. All the Hutterers.
It's still there today.
Yeah. So the two of them were like prince and princess, didn't know anything from life, got married and made 5 children. That's how it went. And those children, boys, 2 girls, they since their parents were so young and so princes, they didn't really know how to educate children. And so they grew up how they grew up. They all loved football, the boys. And yes.
So you got a picture of them.
Yes. And that's what they loved. The boys loved football.
This is a picture taken in 1936.
Yeah.
And this was in Belgium?
This is in Belgium, yes. But they were at football since small. Even my grandfather liked the football. He liked to look at the matches that they when they played football, and so they didn't have anything, no profession, nothing. They didn't know. And when the boys grew a little bit, they understood that it couldn't be like that. You had to earn some money. They found out that in Lyon, in France, you could learn to be a furrier for free if you worked there. You could come and learn how to be a furrier. So one by one, they went to Lyon, and all of them learned how to be furriers. So they came back to Krakow, to my grandfather, and they told him, look, it's no good here, and it's not a good idea to stay here. We heard that in Antwerp is a good place for Jews, because there's a nice keilah and you can have a good life. So what we propose is that we'll make a factory, a fur factory. You'll be the director and we will work. So they all went to Antwerp and they created this fur factory.
It's amazing.
And so my grandfather was the one selling the wares, coats, whatever. And so they lived a good life in Antwerp. I even found the flat where they lived, and I must say I was amazed. It was in a nice house. There was a lift. There was I could see the flat. There was a a bathroom, and it was modern. There was a lift in the house, yes, and they had a good life there.
Paulette, you have a picture of your parents in Hashomer Tzair.
Yes.
And this is from 1935.
Yes, so they came a little bit earlier. Maybe I make a mistake on the years.
So your father is with the glasses?
Yes.
And your mother?
And my mother next to him.
And they all look very happy. They all look...
Yeah, the Shomer HaTzair was the main Jewish organization. All the young people were, a lot of them were in Shomer HaTzair because it was the trend that all the Jews were socialists, and that the idea of socialism was very strong, and they belonged.
So, Paulette, you have also a picture of your parents when they were engaged in 1936.
Yeah, so they came probably to Antwerp in 33, not 35.
And
it must be. Yeah.
Your parents got married in 37.
Yes.
So here's such a beautiful picture of when they got married, and your father was wearing a top hat.
Yeah.
You can see.
Yeah.
And they got married. Did they get married in Antwerp?
Yes. They got married in Antwerp.
Do you know which shul that was in?
Probably because my grandfather was, I know his place in shul, so it must be in the shul where he was, Van der Nestlai. Van der Nestlai.
And here's your father in the diamond trade.
Yes, yes. He was... It's funny because he had a very, very good name. What he did, his job was to give the first knock on the stone to get out the best or the biggest. And if you give the right knock, you get out the best. So, so he was known that he had this geometric eye, and he knew how to do it. So he had a very good name. That's in the trade.
You have a picture of your father from 1941.
Yeah, that was just before he left.
And you were born in 1940?
Yes. So I knew him 1 year.
Did your parents speak to you? Where were you born? If you were in the hospital or...
Yes, my mother told me where I was born. I was born in a clinic, private clinic, because there you could have kosher food in Antwerp. I even know where it is. I went by to look at it.
It still exists?
Yeah, but it's not a clinic anymore. It's just a house. but it's the Bria Montlay. I know exactly the address. And I was born Shushan Purim, and my mother was at her parents' and walking home to her flat, and she had tummy ache, and she thought it was from the food from the Seudah, but it wasn't. And so I was born Shushan Purim. Yeah. In this clinic, she knew she had to go to this clinic, normal. It was all normal. My father came. It was no problem, and we still lived a normal life. In 40, when I was born, when I was born in March, was still. It was brewing, but you lived a normal life. And then it started with the German invading Belgium and deciding on what to do with the Jews in Belgium. And in Antwerp was easy because they were cluttered around the diamond trade. So they put how do you call it?
Like decrees, they made
decrees saying that all the young men from age 10 to 40 or something like that. I don't remember how much, what the age were, but they had to come such and such day to the train station, and they had to come without anybody taking them. And if they came to help, now that the Germans were the masters, they had to help in the war, work for the war. And if they came without anybody taking them, nothing would be done to the families. And not only that they worked for the Germans normally, and they would be paid for their work. And my father, being brought up in Germany was the best he ever knew. And he told my mother, if they say so, it's true, because they're Germans and Germans don't lie. And my mother said, no, you are wrong. You are wrong. My mother was Polish, and she didn't believe. And she told him, don't go. Don't go. You don't know what's going to happen. Don't go. And he said he would go anyway. So he left. Left others. There were more than 1,000 men who went to this train station. And they were sent to the north of France, where they had to work on the roads, on building. There was a project that the Germans had. They wanted to build something against the English, and a fort or whatever. Difficult work with earth, with stones, with all these men were in diamonds. They were no good for that. So after a month or two, they were sent back to Belgium, to a place called Mechelen. In Mechelen, it was a camp. It was a military camp, Adain. I was there in the museum, and there were trains waiting for them. But They didn't go immediately. Mechelen is only half an hour from Antwerp, a little bit more. And he couldn't even, there was no way he could talk to my mother. And he was in Mechelen, and then he was trained for his they were sending by group people to Auschwitz by train. The trains used to come there and take them to Auschwitz. Some men jumped even from the train. If the train was a little bit slow, they were young men, they tried to escape, but my father wasn't sporty and he didn't try. So I don't know exactly, we don't know exactly when, if he arrived in Auschwitz. Probably yes, and he died from what they got there in Auschwitz.
Typhus?
Yes, typhus. And there's all kinds of stories around that. My mother knew that he died in Auschwitz.
When did she know?
After the war.
Only after the war?
Yeah, sure. Because when he went to France, meanwhile we were in Antwerp, and Antwerp was, there was a lot of fighting. And Jews were also, they took Jews right, left and center, wherever. And there's even a story my mother told me that it was half normal in Antwerp. So she went into town with me in a pram, and she went into one of the big stores, and I was with her in the pram. And then suddenly they said on the microphone that everybody had to show their identity card, because there was they were looking, the police was coming in. So my mother went to the toilets with the pram, said to the lady, because in Antwerp even now there's a lady there who cleans the toilets, and she said to this lady, "Please tell them that you are the grandmother of this child." And she left. And she left me with the lady. The lady said she was a Flemish lady. And she, when it was finished, when they left, my mother got through. She came to fetch me, and we went home. When I got married in Antwerp, my mother looked up the lady, and she was at my wedding.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you remember her name?
No.
But what an amazing story.
Yeah. I was saved a few times from death like that. From really, I was looked after. That was in Antwerp. But why I'm saying that, my mother couldn't believe that my father wasn't coming back or showing or telling her where he was. She couldn't believe it. And so she decided to find out where he was. She took me, and we went to France. She went to France in the middle of everything.
To
find my father. And so we landed in Paris. Meanwhile, my grandparents' mother's side was sent by their boys, their sons, to France, to a place called Chambéry, which was Free France, so-called. So, but my mother went to Paris. and decided that she would put me in a place where other children were, like paying for my stay in a family. She would ask if they could look after me. And there was, outside of Paris was a place, and they had already 6 children, and my mother thought, well, they know how to look after children. She left me there. And because she said, she thought that if alone she could find my father. When she came back after a month, or maybe less, she found out that I couldn't walk anymore. I was already a child because I never ate. They used to put the food in the middle of the table, and she saw that. And every child, and the children around, and every child who grabbed food had food, and who couldn't, didn't. So she saw that. I was the smallest, so she took me from there, and she went into Paris. But it was Paris, and I was sick. I had whooping cough. So she thought what to do with it. It was dangerous to walk in Paris with a pram. And so she went to a Jewish orphanage in Paris, outside of Paris. And she went to the director, and the director, she said, I would like to leave my child here because it's the war. And the director said, I'm very sorry, but there are many children here, and your child is sick, and others will get, I can't have her. Which was my, to jump very far. After the war, my mother met this director, and he asked where I was. He remembered my mother, and then they spoke, and my mother said I was in Switzerland, and he said how lucky she was, because the next day the Nazis came and took all the children.
Another miracle.
Yeah.
If he would have taken you, we wouldn't be here today.
No. So I'm just saying. I'm saying that if your destiny is to live, you go through all these things, and you are looked after somehow. So my mother.
With this picture.
That's in Lyon. My mother also went to Lyon, because in Lyon she thought she would find my father there.
And how old are you in this picture?
2.5, 3.
So she went to Lyon as well?
Yes, I went with her.
But she must have been such a courageous woman.
She was.
It's German occupied France.
Yeah, but in Lyon was how do you call it? The French underground was all around Lyon, and she knew that in Lyon she could have another identity card, false identity card. That's the one she was incarcerated with. When I got the answer from Klarsfeld, I wanted to know where my mother had been, because she never told me. And so he said she was in Auschwitz, and there was a place where they said there were no women. And he said it's not true, and he found all the papers, and my mother's name was there, her false name. So my mother when she couldn't find my father, she decided that she couldn't walk around with that baby, and she brought me to my grandparents in Chambéry. And so I went to Chambéry, which I liked very much.
Do you still have recollections?
Yes.
Is this one of
Chambéry, I remember exactly.
Is this one of your first recollections?
Yes.
So what do you remember?
I remember we lived in a house, behind the house. There was a concierge, and in each room there was a family. In each room. Generally elderly people, Jewish, each room. And I remember myself going on the steps, going into the rooms and saying hello to the people in each room. They were like grandparents. And also I stayed with my grandmother and grandfather, and my grandmother, there wasn't much to eat, so my grandmother used to make potato soup. And she used to feed me with the potato soup, and I remember the taste. There's no taste like that. I always look for that taste, but I don't know how to do it. And that's one of my recollections. And I didn't have any toys. And I looked down from the window. Downstairs were children from the concierge. They were playing downstairs. The little boy had a car, and the little girl had dolls. And I didn't have any. So, and then I heard that the concierge said, children, come home, eat for 4 o'clock, goûter. So I saw them going, leaving all the toys in the middle of the downstairs. Nobody looked after me, so I went downstairs, grabbed the doll, and went upstairs with the doll. And I knew I shouldn't have done that. I knew that. I was about 3. So I put the doll under the mattress of the bed. There was one bed in the room. I put the doll under the mattress of the bed. And then the concierge came out, and she screamed, "Somebody stole a doll from my daughter. Somebody there said this," and all the Jews, and it was not. I think everybody was scared. She was screaming, and my mother was there. Somehow she was there that day, and she looked at me, and she said, "You took the doll." I didn't say anything, and she said, "Tell me, you took the doll." I didn't say anything. She said, "I will find it." And where could she find it? She went under the mattress, found the doll, and she went downstairs, said, "Slicha," said, "I'm sorry, it won't happen again, it's a little girl." That was it. Then she came upstairs and she said, "You could have brought a terrible thing over us. Don't ever do such a thing again. Don't ever." That I remember exactly. I can draw it. And so that's one of my very first recollections, real recollections. There are some that maybe we spoke about, but this is real. This is a real recollection. And then my mother, who was a very energetic person, decided, not her alone, also I think one of my uncles was also there in the region, and my mother's sister, who was not far away, who with her husband and 2 daughters, who they already had sent with the Red Cross to Switzerland. There was a thing at the moment that they would give holidays for children in France, Catholic children, Catholic or Christian children, a month's holidays in Switzerland so they wouldn't be in the war all the time, and then they would get home again. It was like a holiday. And my aunt, but only Christian children, bought the girls, two twins, crosses, and she made them go to church to sit and to pray with the other children. And they were twins. One is still alive. And they were twins. And the one twin told me that the other one, she was like a good girl. She was always doing what the parents said to do. And the mother said, you never say that you are Jewish, you wear this cross, and etc. And she wasn't exactly the one that used to do. So her sister asked, they all pray, what do we do? So she said, you say Shema Israel, nobody will hear you. So that's what she told me. And so they went with the Red Cross over to Switzerland, and the Red Cross immediately found families for all these children. And they knew that they were Jewish children. They said they were Jewish children, and so they were sent to a Jewish family in Bern. And so they stayed there. They have their own story. One is still alive. I'm not going into that, but that's where they say she was such a good girl that she wouldn't take off her cross because her parents said she had to wear the cross. Until the mother of this family said, I can't have a child with a cross, I want a Jewish child. So they took off. She said, if you don't want to take off the cross, you'll have to go back from where you came. So she took off the cross. Yes, and so they were in Switzerland, and my aunt came to her parents, and my mother my mother said that even Chambéry wasn't secure anymore, and the parents, she had to find a way so we could go over the border to Switzerland. Chambéry is really near Switzerland. And my mother found a man who, for money, he was ready to take us over the border, over the mountain. It was over the mountain to Switzerland. And so we went at night.
And do you remember this?
I remember part of the going, but I know how it happened. And so we went at night, and I was in the arms of my aunt, my mother's sister, and arriving at where this guy was waiting for us, my mother said, I'm going back. There are more Jewish families in this house. If it goes well with all of you, I will do it with the other families. So we went, and my mother took the train back to Chambéry. It was on the train. And what she told me was that arriving in Chambéry at the train station, she felt that somebody was following her. She felt it immediately, but she had nowhere to go, only to the place where she used to live before. So she went, and she went into the room. They were waiting for her in the room, and my mother, being very young and foolish, they said to her, "Where are your parents? Where is your child?" They knew exactly. "And your sister?" And my mother said, "You have me, but you'll never have the others. My family is safe." And so she got, they gave her left and right, and she said she was injured, and they took her into prison in Chambéry.
Was it the French or the German that did this?
I guess, I don't know, she never said that. She only knew that she was in a French prison in Chambéry.
So it could have been the French?
Could have been. And so she was in Chambéry for 3 months in prison. She said they were okay in that prison. Nobody hurt them.
Just because she was Jewish?
Ah, yeah, sure. And after 3 months, she said the guardian, the soldier who was guarding the prison, came in, and he said he was sad. She said he was sad. And he said, "My little lady, I'm very sorry, but tomorrow morning you are leaving." Which she knew what it meant. If she was leaving, she was leaving to Drancy. Everybody knew that. So the next morning she was sent to Drancy, and from Drancy to Auschwitz.
And this is from the French police station?
Yeah,
she was
from the prison.
Drancy, from the prison.
And at a certain moment, there was one of the lawyers in France wanted to intend against the French train company, and they told me I should bring all the papers also. So I wrote to Chambéry to ask them for that they should give me some papers that my mother was there in prison. And the answer was everything was burnt. Which may be true, maybe not, who knows. So never, there was never anything. And then there was a process, how do you say, they went against the French railways, and they lost because they said they couldn't do anything about it because they were under the Nazis. So that was it with that.
I think only recently the French government have apologized for, but it was only very recently.
Yeah, no. And now France is so anti-Semitic. It's unbelievable, unbelievable. I lived in France, and my schooling was in France. I loved it. I loved France. French is my best language, and French literature, French, everything is that I know from, because that's my basic language. Well, anyway, that's how we came to Switzerland, by Geneva in a refugee camp with my grandparents and my aunt.
And you remember arriving in Switzerland? You remember?
No. The only thing is that I remember that when we walked, my aunt had her hand on my mouth, and she said, "Shh, shh, 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 shake it." Yeah, not shake it. She said, "Don't cry, don't talk, shh." She was afraid. I was small. She was afraid, and I remembered the dogs looking for us. because the Germans were after us. The dogs, and I was scared of dogs many years. I was so scared. And we arrived in this refugee camp, and I don't remember exactly. I remember some feelings, but not. And not long ago I found the letter my grandfather sent to the Red Cross, asking that they should find a family for me. Which is, I thought it was, and my aunt and my grandfather spoke to the people from the Red Cross. And what is funny, I mean, not funny, but very telling, is that what they asked for is a family who will love the child. They didn't say a Jewish family. They did, and they were religious. My grandfather was very religious, and my aunt was very religious. They didn't ask for a Jewish family. They just asked for a good family. And I found the letter my grandfather wrote, and I saw that he wrote very good German, had a very nice handwriting, which means that he went to school. But the Austrians had taken Poland, so he went to school, so he knew German, and that was part. If people said that he didn't know anything, he did. Yeah, I know, I saw the letter. Yeah, he was a little prince, that's why probably. Yes, and so I was in the camp. I don't remember the camp at all. But I remember the day my aunt said to me, there's a lady who will come and take you away to a nice family where you will be, they will love you. This lady is very nice, you have to go with her. I never cried. I don't remember ever crying. I knew I had to do it, so I went.
Did he ever ask, is your mother coming back, or what's happened to your mother?
Not really. No. I just took in whatever was coming. I was a child like that. I just, whatever was there, I had to deal with it. It's probably part genetic from my mother. I just had to deal with the situation, and I did. I don't remember crying. I wasn't a crying child. And I arrived in Kur, where I got to the family. That's the family. 23 of December. I arrived in Kur, which is the town where this family was, family Brücker. The mother of this family, her name was Martha, she had said to her children, it's Christmas time, I don't want any presents this Christmas from anybody. I don't want if you want to bring me a present, give me a present. I want a child from a child that is in a refugee camp, a boy or a girl. I just want a child to look after, to give warmth and love. And this Gretli, this one of the daughters, she was working for Caritas. Caritas is the Catholic side of the Red Cross. It's called Caritas. And she was working for Caritas. They're very Catholic family. And she had a friend who worked for the Red Cross, and she told her friend, I don't know what to do. My mother wants for Christmas, imagine what my mother wants. She wants a child as a present for Christmas. And her friend said, oh, that's very good. We are looking for a family. Here is a Jewish child, a Jewish girl, and she needs a family desperately. So you have your present. And Gritli said, but what are we doing with a Jewish child? How are we going to educate her? How are we going to see what to do with her? So her friend said, your mother will know exactly what to do. And that was it. So I came to Cour. And it was 23rd of December.
And this is 1940?
43.
43?
Yes.
And this is?
This is me.
This is in Switzerland?
Yes.
But Paulette, I have to ask you, why did your aunt and your grandparents not want you to go to a Jewish family?
They didn't even mention it. They didn't mention. They just said the family. I think, after thinking again and again, I think that it was obvious, being Jewish, that they would look for a Jewish family. That's why they didn't write a Jewish family. I don't think they didn't want me to go to a Jewish family, definitely not. For them it was a problem, because they were kosher, they were dati, it was a problem that I was in a Catholic family. So I think it's only that. It's that they just didn't think that it would...
Maybe they just took it for granted.
Yes, I think so, yes. Because afterwards it was problematic for them visiting me. What my aunt did was that when we went over the border and into that refugee camp, she said she was my mother, not my aunt. And she had already 2 daughters in Switzerland, so she said, that's my 3rd daughter.
And her 2 daughters in Switzerland were the Jewish family?
Yes, both of them. But I wasn't. She said she was my mother, and she had the right to visit me. So one day my war mother said, oh, your mother is coming to visit. Let's go to the train station to fetch her. So we went, and out came my Aunt Rachel. And I said, that's not my mother, that's Aunt Rachel. And my war mother, Martha, said, she told me that later, I don't remember that, she told me, and she said, I did as if I hadn't heard anything.
Wait, so Paulette, I have to ask you, did they speak German, the
Yes.
family? So,
Yes.
And you spoke German as well?
No, I spoke French.
Not at all, no German?
No, I came into the family, I spoke French.
Could they understand French?
Yes. They were very, the father was a lawyer, the mother had a very good education in private schools, and she spoke French and Italian.
And at home, what did you speak as a baby? Or what was the first language you learned?
German. My father spoke German to me.
So could you understand?
And my mother too.
Could you understand a bit of German?
No. I don't remember. When I arrived there in the flat, first of all, I arrived in something I never saw. Oh, what could I see? But it was a very big flat. It was 5 people were waiting for me, and I went up in a lift, which I never had seen, and everybody was looking at me. And this war mother, Martha, took me in her arms and spoke to me in French. And I answered, "Oui, madame, non, madame," in French. And she said, "You don't call me madame. You can choose. Call me grandma, auntie, or Ima, or mother." And I said, "I want to call you mother."
Really?
And I always called her mother. As she was. She was a very special person. She was a very believing Catholic. And the beautiful side of Catholicism I learned from her. I only saw the beautiful side. She was perfect. She was a perfect person. She didn't believe, she believed that every person was born in a family, in a surrounding, in a place, and everybody was allowed to keep that. You were not supposed to change people. That's what they had, that's what they were, and they belonged to what they have. And that's how she saw the world. She was against all these people going to Africa and so
the
to change missionary. She was against it.
She didn't want to convert you?
No, not at all. They were Catholic. They were Catholics like you can imagine Jews in Bnei Brak who believe in their rabbi. So they were Catholic believing in their cardinal who lived in the same city. And they were part of his entourage from the cardinal. And the cardinal came Sundays, sometimes Sundays, for lunch with his gabbai. And I remember I was maybe 4, 5, I don't remember the age I was sitting in this city, little girl, I was sitting there, in this city. And I got it as a...
Really? This is the...
That's the one. I was so small that they couldn't see me when I was sitting there. And she was sitting in a settee that was like a throne. Gothic. That's how she sat straight like that. And the cardinal was sitting in another settee. And he said, "Mrs. Brucker, you want to do such good things to that little girl. Bring her to Mother Church." And she sat in the church like this, and she said, I was given a Jewish child, I will give back a Jewish child. Yeah, that's how she was.
That is unbelievable.
Yeah, she was unbelievable. She sent me, they were very Catholic, you know, they were so Catholic. They belong, in Switzerland they have, yeah.
Sure.
In Switzerland they had wars, Protestant Catholics. And in that city, Chur, where I was, there was a cardinal, and a cathedral and a whole part which belonged to the cardinal. Even today it's like that. And they belonged to that. And there were more Protestants in this town than Catholics. And they belonged to the Catholic environment. They gave money to the Keilah. They were like Jews the same way, in the same vein as Jews being in a Keilah. So for me, later on, when I came back to be Jewish, or my family, it wasn't strange to me because I knew that's how you behave.
It was a community.
Yes. It was very Catholic. It was very, very Catholic.
And how was her husband, and how was
her husband was an anti-Semite. No, he wasn't. No, he was a lawyer. He didn't like Jews. But that's the norm there. You don't like Jews.
How do you know that he didn't like Jews?
Because he used to, it's another story, that my grandparents were allowed to have a studio instead of being in the refugee camp, they were allowed to have a studio in Zurich, because my grandfather had some family in Zurich, Swiss Jews. And so they had a studio in Zurich, and it was Shavuot, or before Shavuot, and they asked to have me for the Chag with them. My grandfather asked. And so there was a big question. And so they met, the two couples. The two women were friendly immediately.
This is
they had
your
the
grandparents and...
No, my grandmother and this Swiss mother. Yeah. The two of them immediately found they were two men didn't spoke to each other, not even hello. My grandfather wasn't better. He said, "Goyim I don't want." He was a Polish Jew, and and my war father, we said, Jews. Men. Yes, that's how they met. And my war mother said to me, "Oh, your grandmother is a real princess," when she was. Yeah, that's how I know how they felt, the two men.
And did you go to the family in Zurich for
Yes, I did.
Shavuot? But
meanwhile, I loved this mother. This war mother was my whole world. She put me into kindergarten. Where did she put me in kindergarten? Where nuns, she was Catholic. So, but she said to the nun, "In the morning when you pray, this little girl isn't making the cross. And don't ask her to do it." That's part of it. And so it was Shavuot, and wherever she went, I wanted to go with her. I was a little girl, and she was my whole world. And she went a lot to church. She was very frum, very frum. On Sundays, if she didn't get communion because she wasn't feeling well, it was tragedy. The priest had to come and give her mass in the bedroom and give her she was very frum. So she also went afternoon. It's a time when you go afternoon, I think after, I don't remember when it is that you go to Vespers in the afternoon to church. Nobody goes, only very frum people, and she used to go. And because I was always with her and next to her, I want to come with you, I want to come with you. And she thought, she told me later, I don't want to take her to church, and it's not for her. In the end, She said, I thought I can't do any harm. I'm not doing anything against her. She wants to come with me. She should come with me. So I went with her to church, to the cathedral. It's a very nice cathedral, Gothic. And it's very quiet, and she prays there, and I sit there next to her. And so we started, she started to take me whenever she went, so not to leave me alone at home or with the maid. And then came this Shavuot. And so I went to Zurich. And my grandfather said, she comes with me to shul. And my grandfather didn't go to shul. He went to a shtibel. So I went with him. I was about 6.
And your grandmother as well?
My grandmother wasn't feeling well. She was a sick person. So I went with him, opened the door to the shtibel. I was in shock, a complete shock. Everybody shockled and such a loud thing, and everybody prays this way, and they move this way. And I looked, it was awful. It was awful because suddenly I thought, that's me, not the cathedral. That's mine. And it was a big shock. I didn't like it, I must tell you. But then, you know, on Shavuot, they asked the children to come to the bima and they put the talit. So my grandfather too called me up to the bima, and all the children were there, and I was under the talit next to him. And that was it. I accepted. I remember accepting it immediately. That's how it is. That's who I am. That's it.
And Paulette, did you ever ask, why did your family in Zurich not take you?
No, I never asked. I preferred not to.
Did they have their own children?
Yes, sure.
And was there place in their home?
They're very rich people.
That's so hard to understand.
Yeah. It was my grandfather's sister was married to a Swiss family.
And they didn't say, maybe you should now stay here with us in Zurich?
No.
They knew you were going back to a non-Jewish family.
Well, that was my family. That's where I was.
But didn't this upset your grandparents and your aunt?
They couldn't do anything about it. They couldn't. There were some funny parts, like in Switzerland, the Jewish community of Switzerland knew where all the children were, where the families, in what family they were. So Pesach, they used to send matzot to all these families, and the matzot arrived also in Kur to that family. And I gave one bite, and I said, "Ugh," and they loved it. They ate all the matzahs.
Did they send any representative, any rabbi to come see you, or any?
No, but my war mother, Martha, she thought that I had to know who I was. First of all, in the kindergarten, she did that. Then at the table, they always said a prayer before lunch, before you ate. So they changed the prayer so that I could say the prayer. And my prayer was, "Dear God, give food to all the children in the world." That was my prayer. And I used to say it loud. They didn't say Jesus, they never said anything. And Jesus was in every room, and the holy...
With the cross?
Yeah, everything. Even, and I always laughed afterwards. I thought, they had holy water on the side of the door, like a mezuzah. and there was Holy Theresia. She was the holy of the family, and and Christmas and Easter and the whole thing. So I learned to be a Jew through her. What she wanted was that I knew who I was. So she found a rabbi who came to town to give lessons to a boy for his bar mitzvah, a Swiss boy. He came once a week or twice a week, twice a month. No, every week. He came from Davos. He was a refugee. He was in Davos. He was the rabbi there, Rabbi Levi. And she went to him and she said she would like him to give me lessons in Tanakh. It was 4 or 5. And so I went once a week and to teach me Aleph Bet. So I went once a week to Rav Levi to have my lesson, and he gave me Shiurei Bait. And he wrote in Latin letters under the Hebrew what it was, so she could do my homework with me. He wrote in Latin letters, because I couldn't read Latin letters. I wasn't even in school. So I learned Aleph Bet and doing homework with her. I went to Rav Levi, and Rav Levi also, all the children who were in all kinds of families arrived at Rav Levi in Davos for Pesach, for the Seder. And they had buses and took all the children up to there. So I remember 2 Sederim that I went.
And you
there.
went to Davos?
Yes, I went to Davos. It's not far. And also
And how was
Purim.
it when you met the other Jewish children? Did you connect well? Did you make friends?
It wasn't, there was no problem. There was no, first of all, this family being very rich and central of the town wasn't so big then. Today it's a much bigger town. But then the town wasn't so big, and the father was from a village above the town, and he was like, I don't know, he was like a central figure. He had his own, he owned a newspaper. He had his own ideas, and he owned a newspaper. He built a very big house that he rented. The flats were rented out to his friends who had participated in the building of this house. He was known as a political figure in the town, and the town wasn't big, so I was the child that was at them, and I had their, how you say in Hebrew, ahila. I mean, everybody knew that I belonged to them, so nobody would dare say a word against me or do something against me. Nobody dared. They were like royals. They were
like royalties.
Yeah. Nobody would have done anything, and everybody was saying, "Well, she stays there," and they took her. But we also lived like that in that house. I mean, 12 o'clock, everybody had to stand next to the table at their place. 12 o'clock. You sat in a certain way, you ate in a certain way, and you had to be very well mannered.
So if you look at the picture, you can see everybody is very formal.
Yes, they are. They were. Very formal. Everything was formal.
And how did you get on with the other children? Well, they're not children, but they were
And so, Gritli is the one who brought me, the one sitting on the left. That's Gritli. She brought me to the family.
And was she loving?
No. She broke my heart at the end of her life. I was in Kur when she was already in old age home, and it was a Catholic old age home, and the nuns there said, and I went to visit her. Her brothers and sisters weren't very loving. They didn't hate each other, but they were, I don't know, they didn't, I don't know if they didn't like her or what, they weren't close. And I was visiting, and one of the nuns said, "Stay." I said, "Yes." "Well, she's not going to wake up tomorrow morning." So I stayed, and I phoned to they phoned to the family, and nobody came. I was alone with her. And she said to me, "It's such a shame you weren't Catholic." That was her. I cried. Yeah. I don't know why she said that. For me, it was very hard to hear. She was a good person. She taught me singing.
Did she get married?
No. She was at Caritas, and Caritas also went with the Red Cross with the Nazis. The Nazis wanted to show them that it was okay with the Jews. So she went also, and she saw, and they weren't allowed to help anybody, only help them get into the trains. And then she heard about what's happened later, after the trains, and she came home. She was engaged to get married, and she stopped everything. She said, "I'm not going to get married and have children who can do things like that." And she was depressed, and they were very afraid that she wouldn't come out of it. So what the psychiatrist said, they had enough intelligence to take a psychiatrist. He said she should have a garden. You have downstairs, you have a piece of land, let her make her a garden, and she should look after the garden. And that's what she did, and I helped her as a child. That's how I know how lettuce grow, and yeah.
And her other sister, was she?
The other sister was the youngest of family, and she was jealous. I never knew as a child that however she was, it was because she was jealous. I took her place at the table.
But she's so much older than you. She was...
No, she was 14 when I came, 14, 15, like that. But I took her place at the table. I was put in between mother and father. That was my place at the table, and that was her place before, because she was the youngest. So she was jealous. She was really jealous. She was jealous, and on the other hand, she felt that that some relation between us. When I had my children and I was sick, she said, "Send me the girls. I'll look after them until you get better." She also said things like, when the children didn't behave somehow, she said, we were different. We were educated in a different way, didn't we? Yes. She was somehow she was closer than the other sister, because she felt we were related somehow, and the other one behaved like she behaved. She had to take me. My war mother made her take me with her on she had created a youth movement for girls, Catholic girls, called the Way, der Weg. They were Catholic, and they saw each other like Tnuat Noir, same way. And in the summer there were summer camps, and in the winter camps. And my war mother used to say, "Take her with you to the winter camp. It will do her such good to the mountains will her do some good. Take her with you." And she didn't like that, I'm sure. She didn't like it. Well, she didn't know what to do with me, because they all went to church, and how could she explain to all the girls who I was and what I was? So it wasn't easy for her, but yeah, that's how it was. I liked it in the winter camp. It was nice. I didn't like the ski, but that was another story.
What was her name?
Gridley, Margaret. But her name was Gridley.
And the other siblings, did they get married?
Yes. Hans, that's the biggest. He was a pharmacist. He studied in Bern. He met his wife in Bern. Yeah, that's him.
One in the middle.
He had a story with the Nazis. Well, before the war. He went to one of the summer camps that they had. The Hitlerjugend had summer camps that were very in the nature and singing and all that. That's how they brought them in. And he went to German. When he came back from the summer camp...
And that was in Germany?
That was in Germany. When he came back from the summer camp, he was hitched. And my war mother told me that they had a terrible time taking it out of him. He and his father, both of them, said, "No, it's not right, you can't, and it's not, no. I think some of it stayed with him, I think. Well, he was never bad to me, or we didn't have much with each other. He was the eldest. He was not bad, but he wasn't very close. The next one, Alois.
He's in the uniform.
Yes, he was a neurosurgeon in the end. Yes, he learned. He was at university. When I came, he was a soldier. And he liked me, and I liked him very much. He was a very likable man, did a lot of his life became very different from the others. And he always said he was my brother, and always nobody was allowed to touch me. He was like my brother. He was my brother, and he thought I was wonderful, and blah. All our lives. When I was living still in Ranana, I get once a phone call, and he says, "I'm here. I'm in Egypt. I'm coming to Israel. Get me a room in in the King David in Jerusalem." Yeah, very nice, thank you. And he said, "Yes, I'm coming to visit you. Get me a room in the King David in Jerusalem. 2 rooms, actually. No, 2 names. His name and a lady's name, which I didn't know. And she was Jewish. They never married. She was his mistress many years. She was also a neurosurgeon. She was a neurologist. She was a neurologist from a very well-known Jewish family in Zurich. Also a story from Jews and Goyim and da. And she had been in Israel. She had done Aliyah before. She was in Kibbutz Magalim. She knew the whole Memshala. Yeah, he was special. I always had a very, very good. He always said he was my brother. I even have his book where he writes unto my little sister. He written a book.
And Paulette, the boy who's sitting on the right, that was Albert.
Yeah.
And he was the youngest.
He was the youngest. He was before the youngest daughter.
The youngest of the sons.
Yeah.
And did you have a good connection with him?
Yeah, he was a nice man. He was a little bit. He was a very nice man, but he wasn't. He never went to university. He was sick when he was a child and a young man, so he never went to university. But he was very clever. He used to do all the everything his father needed in the house and in accountancy. He was like his director for the business, and he also his father was very clever. He gave each of the children a part of the house and the houses and the heritage while he was still alive. So he got, that's my cousins. He got.
I'm just going to show the picture of Kur.
Kur, yeah.
And these are the. Were these the twins?
He got in the house, this big house, the Retushof. That's the twins, yeah. In the Retushof, there is a picture of the Retushof there. That's the house. Down, it was a big house, and down at the street level were shops and a theater. When he built the house, the father, he put the city, that's the summer house, that's the Retushof. That's where I lived. So and
they had a summer home?
Yeah, in the mountain. Villa Teresia. He put, the father, when he built the house, he put the city theater downstairs. And then it became, when the city theater built another theater more theater. Then he made it into a cinema, and the cinema belonged to Albert. And that's her. Martha.
You can see such a kind, you can see from her face, a very loving, kind person.
Yes, she was. She tried to teach such. She took me. She was like the president of Witzo, yeah, but she was for the Catholic, like a Witzo, but the Catholic one. She was the president, and as a president, she went to the poor part of Switzerland to bring food and sweets to the children, and she took me with her to show me that some children don't have what I have. She took me with her, and she said, "You give the sweets to the children." That was part of her teachings.
It's amazing. How often did your grandparents come and visit you, or your aunt?
Never. My aunt came maybe twice, and it was a problem because she wouldn't eat anything. She wouldn't eat anything.
But could you write to each other, or were you in contact?
Not really. I didn't know how to read and write.
Only trust. And at this time, did you know what had happened to your mother? Or
No.
did you ever ask?
Every night, before I went to sleep, I had to pray for my parents. Every night. Before I went to bed.
But you didn't know what had happened to your father either.
So I prayed to God they should keep my parents healthy and well and can come back soon to me. Every night.
And that's your... Who this is... She actually still in you.
That's what she wanted me. How she taught me how
She taught you to pray for your parents.
Yes. Well, she was a very special person. She was very. We were very connected. You know, when I left, when my mother came back from Auschwitz, my mother came first time to visit my mother.
So Paulette, these are the twins. How old were they, the twins?
They were 7 years older than me. They still are.
And their names?
Mary. One is Mary and the other one is Bert.
And her name was Mary?
One is Mary, yes. She's still alive. And the other one is Bert. He died a year ago.
And they were sent to a Jewish family in Bern?
Yes. And the woman of this family said she didn't want two girls. She wanted a girl and a boy, so one of them had to leave to another family.
And that's what happened?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. And all her life, I was with Mary, all her life, she thought, why did she choose my sister and not me?
So which one was chosen?
This one, the other one, this one.
She was chosen to stay?
Yeah.
What a sad story. What is a terrible thing to do, to separate twins.
Yeah.
And was she staying in the same town, or did
Yeah, in the same town with a nice family. She stayed with a nice family who had 5 children, and she was loved there, and they were okay. They were Jewish family, nice people. And when the war was finished, she went back to her mother.
But can I ask, during the war, did you manage to see the
Yes,
twins?
yes.
How did you get to see them?
My aunt said she was my mother, so she took me to see her other children.
And did she get to see her children quite often?
She was, no, not often, but they had these schedules that you could see your children. The Red Cross had this, Switzerland, they're very organized in Switzerland.
So it's interesting, you got pictures from 1946 and 1947 and you were still staying with the family. So here's a picture with you and...
47 was when I left.
This is you and Gretchen.
And, yeah, Gritli.
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 Gritli. And this is in 47, you were dressed up as a nurse.
Yeah, that was Christmas. I was given a nurse, the nurse dress, outfit, because I wanted to be a nurse. So they gave me that as a Christmas present.
And you were 7 years old.
Yeah.
So can I ask, when the war ended,
yeah,
in 45,
yes.
How come you didn't go back to your grandparents or to your aunt?
Well, my grandparents, my grandmother died in Switzerland. She was sick and she died. And until everything was organized, she was buried in Zurich and in 45. And she knew that all her children were safe, that she knew. And I also went to visit her before she died in hospital. And so it took a while. Then the Swiss organized departure of all the refugees back into their countries. They were given some money from the Europeans or from the joint, from all kinds of money. That's my aunt and her husband. So it took a while. It had to be organized, and all these people had to go back to from where they came, but they didn't have anything. I know when I came in 47 to Belgium, they still had very little crockery and they didn't have anything, just anything.
Paulette, we're going to just show the pictures. This is your aunt.
Which one? That's my aunt and her husband when they were engaged. And you have, these pictures are so special. This is with the family.
The family.
The boys, the brothers of my, not all of them. The one in Israel is not in the picture. The one who stayed with the Maccabia. He worked as a worker at the port of Tel Aviv. I came to visit him.
And Paulette, the picture below.
Which one? That's Mary. Yeah. She was, Mary came back to her mother and my uncle there's an uncle there, my uncle Jack. That's my uncle. Yitzhak, Jack. He was living in America and he came to visit his sister after the war. He was the one who sent money for the burial of my grandmother because he was in America. I have the letters that my grandfather asked for money he sent $100 from America. So
In those days, it was a lot of money.
Yeah, and he needed to my grandfather, my aunt.
Here's your grandfather. And do you remember when the war ended? Do you remember was it a big celebration or?
No, I don't remember anything like. I only know about the war during the war. In the father of the Brückers, the family, they had like I have here, but they have another room also, but they had the table and then a little salon, yeah, with a settee and some chairs. And on the wall was a big piece of glass, and behind the glass was the geography of the earth. So that when the radio was there, well, there only was a radio, and the radio was saying things about it's done here and it happens here, and so he showed on the yeah, that's me and my aunt in Belgium after the war. In Belgium.
Can you tell us what happened when you heard that your mother was coming to visit you? That she survived? How were your feelings when you
It
heard?
was like expectation, but not let's see what happens.
Who told you that your mother had survived?
My mother. And then she sent that. I didn't remember her. Why does she look so good? Ask me.
That's a good question, because she's just been she's
released
survived
from Auschwitz. The Joint sent lots of money to Paris and said that all the women who came out of the concentration camps should be treated by cosmeticians in Paris and put them back to be women. And my mother was and I even know what cosmeticians. There was the Caritas sisters. They had a big cosmetic salon, and my mother was there. They made her blonde, they made her hair, they did whatever needed to be done, and she was given a beautiful dress, a nice dress. That was all the Joint. That's what the Joint asked, that all the women who came out of concentration, first of all, they all went to sanatoriums. First of all, they had psychologists, psychiatrists, and they stayed. They gave them food slowly, and then they were sent to Paris to be redone. And that's why I got the picture only, not in 45. I got the picture in 46.
And this is the original picture?
Yeah. But I didn't remember her at all. At all.
You didn't have memories? Or?
No. They said, that's your mother. I said, okay, it's my mother.
And did you look and see there's a resemblance?
No. I thought, well, let's see what's going to be.
Were you excited?
No, I was a bit afraid.
Because of the unknown?
Yeah. I was afraid. I was afraid because somehow I was afraid I was losing my war mother's love. She was giving me back, but she didn't want to give me back either, so. It wasn't my mother's brother, the youngest, called Romek. He also had been in the camps, and he was the one who came to say that I had to go back to my mother. They had to give me back to my mother.
He came to the home?
Yes.
And you met him when he came?
Yes, sure.
And how was that interaction when you met him?
I was very happy. But because he was young, he was very jolly. He came back from the camps. He was just a very young man, very and very sure that's what it has to be. She's going back, and her mother needs her, and that's it. Well, my war family, for them it was not easy either, because I had been part of the family. But they knew I was going back. And when he told the story, how he told them, the family, the Swiss family, that he came to say that I had to go back to my mother, he said it was like somebody died. They were so sad. He said, they had next to the living room, they had another salon, a big salon, and they went in there and they talked. I wasn't part of it. But he said it was like Yom Kippur for them, he said. And nobody said to me anything. They just said he was the brother of my mother. He was the younger brother of my mother. He was the youngest. And I was very happy because I had a real uncle. I was very happy that he came.
And he was loving towards you?
Yeah, so I went into his room. He got a room in the flat. It was a big flat. Everybody got a room. I went into his room and I said to him, can you teach me a song? A Jewish song? So I said, yes, why not? And he taught me. Yes.
Do you remember the song?
Yeah, sure.
Well, can I ask you, what was the song?
It was שבט אחים גם יחד, נו. הנה מה טוב ומנעים. הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שבט אחים גם יחד. That was the song.
Can you still sing it?
Yeah, sure.
Could you sing it?
הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שבט אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שבט אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, שבט אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, שבט אחים גם יחד. That's it.
It's so special.
Yeah.
And how long did he stay in the house?
Not long. He came for 2 or 3 days, nothing, and he just came to tell them. That's what he did.
And then how soon afterwards did your mom come?
My mom didn't come immediately. It took, they decided not to rush the things, they knew it wasn't easy for me either. So first of all I got the pictures, and I didn't recognize her. But okay, they said, this is your mother, this is your mother. So they put it on my nightstand. I had a nightstand next to the bed. They put the picture next to it so I could see her every day. I woke up in the morning, I saw her. In the evening, I saw her. And she came. When she came, she was completely different from my warm mother. Completely. She was jolly, had a lot of energy, she wore dresses with flowers, my warm mother all in grey and beiges and very quiet and and she was just the contrary, and blonde. My God. She was completely different, and I wasn't very sure. I had to. She was my mother. I knew she was my mother, and I belonged to her. But it was not easy to belong to her. No, it wasn't.
And I have to ask you, when you first saw her, how was that emotional? What do you remember of your first encounter?
No emotion.
Did she hug you or hold you?
Oh yeah, she hugged me very strong.
And
But I hated.
Was she crying or was
No, my mother wasn't.
And were you crying?
No. She hugged me like this. No, she was like that.
But were you excited when you heard that she's coming?
I don't know if I was excited. They made me look as if I wasn't excited. I didn't know where I was, what was going to be. It wasn't, it was like moving me from everything.
And what was the first thing your mother said to you?
Nothing. She just took me. No, she didn't. And then she said, it was lunch, and my aunt was very religious. She hadn't eaten anything. My mother, everything was on the table. It was okay. And then she said, I don't know who said that we should go to take a picture, photography together. Yeah. That's
and this the day that you met?
Yeah.
Did your mother come by herself or with you?
Yeah, by herself.
Must have been very hard for your mother as well. It must have been.
I don't know what she. Yeah, she was a strong woman. She was such a strong woman, and she had somehow also everything. It was an excuse. It's not a good word for her that nothing could be as bad as what she had endured. And so there was no crying, and there was no sentiments, and there was no putzi-mutzi. It was all strong, violent, not violent, but strong. So this woman during the war, who was all sentiments, all loving, all, and she was just the contrary. She was full of energy, and I understand she was 29. She wanted life. She wanted it all back. They had taken it from her, and so she wanted it all back. Me too. She wanted, yes, that belongs to me, I want that, and it's me, it's for me, and I want it, and life is for me, and I don't, they took it away from me, I want it all back. And that was not an excuse, it was it was how she felt. And I understand, as a grown woman, I understand what it means when you're 29, you were in hell, and they took away whatever you had, and now you have to do it again. You have to find your life again. Yeah.
These are the pictures that of your parents. So
Yes.
she had all these memories of
Yeah.
what they took from her.
Yes.
And she was so young.
She was very young. That's my uncle and aunt with me in Lyon. They had a boy in Switzerland. They also made it to Switzerland.
This is you in 1940.
Yeah.
And when your mother came, how long did she stay? Or
She didn't stay long. First of all, they all knew that they knew that it wasn't easy. The situation wasn't easy for anybody. So it went slowly. And besides that, my mother had already. She knew my father was not coming back, and so she met a man in the sanatorium where she was sent. Very nice man, and they decided. He knew that she had a child, and he also had been in concentration camps, and he was a very nice man, and so decided to get married.
was this after she met you, or she got married before she met you?
No, she got married afterwards. Afterwards, when I came to Belgium when I left Cour, and I came to Belgium.
So after that first meeting, when did your mother come back? First of all, can I ask you, after your mother was there, how long did she stay on the first visit?
Not long, maybe a week, maybe.
And did you get closer to each other, or did you speak a lot to
It
each
was a
other?
relief when she left. I never said that to anybody, but it was.
Could you speak to each other, or was it?
Yeah, I knew what I had to do. I knew how I had to behave, and I did. But inside, it wasn't that. I knew what was right, because this woman, when she educated me in that way, that I knew what was right, and I had to do it the right way. And there was I knew that was it, that was my life.
Was your mother very loving towards you when you met her, when she came back?
My mother was very strong and very wild. She was, everything was very strong. There was no putzi-mutzi, it was it.
Did you sleep with each other?
No.
Or did you?
No.
Did she kiss you a lot? Was she very?
Oh yeah, she took me and she did, but not. It was so different. It was so different. But I knew she was mine, I was hers. I mean, no question. There was no question. And maybe because of that, I was maybe, and I think about it, I was maybe very critical, because I expected more from her, or to be what I expected, or I compared, which wasn't right. I knew it wasn't right, but that it was impossible. Even though I was a small child, I was only 7.
Only 7.
But it was difficult. It was very difficult. And she wasn't an easy person to be with, as it is. She wasn't. But I know that I belonged to... And the thing is that I always knew to whom I belonged, even though I loved this other family, but I belonged there, not there. And well, you have to chew that.
So how long did you stay with the family before you...
I came to Antwerp for Pesach 47.
Pesach 47. And when... So this picture was taken...
Before, just before.
Just before, because this was on the 17th of April. The picture was taken.
And maybe then it's 47. 47, because I was 7 when I got into school. Pesach, and I went to school in autumn 47.
Yeah, so this was in 17th of April.
Yeah, it was before Pesach. I was first Pesach with my grandfather in Antwerp. And there was 2 Pesach. And I didn't understand anything.
So when your mother left after the few days that she was there, did you speak to your mother? Did she ask you how were your feelings? Did she?
No, she never asked my feelings. She only taught me. She never asked if what. She understood my feelings, and I understood she understood.
Did anybody in the family ask you how you're feeling, or are you okay?
No. Nobody asked. Nobody asked. No. It was like understood. It wasn't expressed. Never. Nothing. Only when I left. Before I left. That was also something. How will the child get to the other side?
So how did you leave?
So they said, well, alone by train. No, she's only 7. Alone, it will be awkward if somebody goes to Belgium or they come to... So it's awkward. So how do we send the child? By plane. So that was 47. There were no big planes. There was 2, the planes that they had during the war. So they said I would go by plane from Zurich to Brussels. So they would bring me to Zurich, and they would take me from the plane in Brussels. So it was not Kloten like today in Zurich. It was Dubendorf, was still airport, the airport that was during the war in Zurich. So it's still this airport, and we arrived, the 3 of us, my war mother, father, and me, and so they thought that all of us were going into the plane. So they got to the stairs to get up in the plane, and I went up alone. So the captain was standing there, and the hostess was standing there on the steps there, and I went up alone into the plane.
And saying goodbye? Was it difficult to say goodbye?
No.
And were the other passengers on the plane?
I don't remember. But I remember getting to Brussels, and then, no, they said you will, before they told me that there was a hostess who will take care of you, don't be afraid, you'll go alone. I knew that I was going alone. And then in Brussels, they were waiting for me. So
And your mother was there at the airport?
my mother and my uncle, the one that I knew that had come to Cork. No, I don't have a picture of them.
But you know, this family were Hasidei Watalam. They really were.
Yeah, they were definitely. But they don't accept that because they were Swiss.
They paid for your airfare.
Yeah,
So they
sure.
paid for everything.
Yes, for everything, and later in life, again.
Paulette, I want to show this picture because it's you with. You're smiling and you're very happy in the picture.
Oh yes. I always liked an adventure. That was an adventure.
And when you got to Brussels and you came down the...
So my mother and my uncle, which I knew, of course, and it was okay. That was it. That they told me. But the thing is that before I left, my war mother took me aside, and she said, that I'll never forget. She said, "Look, you're not going to have an easy time." I was 7. That's what she said. "Don't forget, your mother has had a very hard time. You have to forgive her for everything." And that stayed with me. It wasn't easy.
But it's the most amazing advice that she could have given
Yeah, I
you.
was 7. Yeah, that's what she said.
And you know what happened to your mother in Auschwitz? Did she ever speak to you about it?
Not really. She only said when I was about 17, I was start smoking. All the girls and the boys were smoking, and I was smoking too. And she said, "Don't smoke. It's no good." You know, in Auschwitz, people were selling their bread, giving their bread for cigarettes. And you know, you had an aunt and her daughter. They used to do that. And when the liberation came, they went out of the camp. They sat on a rock, and both died. That's what she said about smoking. But she smoked. Not a lot, but she did.
And can I ask, when you went to Brussels, was this, you knew you weren't going to be coming back?
No, I knew I was coming back. Because that was the thing. I was told that every Christmas and every summer holidays I was going back to Switzerland. That was...
And did they keep it?
Oh yeah.
So all the years they did
Oh
that?
yes, until I got married.
That is amazing.
Oh yes.
I
I studied there. I was there also afterwards. I mean.
So it must probably made the separation a little much easier.
Oh yes, that was. They said to me, we are not giving you away. You're coming back on holidays, all the holidays, summer holidays, winter holidays. You'll go to ski, you'll come in the summer.
And I'm sure you looked forward to it.
Oh yes, I knew I was going to go there. It wasn't constant, because once I got to be more Jewish and maybe religious, it started to become a problem. Because how can I? My life is complicated. How do I Shabbat and kashrut and it was very difficult. I loved them the same way, but it was difficult. And the father didn't like it at all, because I wasn't eating meat anymore at all. And he was quite angry. that I made this separation. Oh, he liked me the same way. There was no problem, but still, it wasn't. And then my mother decided, no Shomer HaTzair for you. You are going to Bnei Akiva. Why? Shomer HaTzair, they all go to kibbutz. I don't want you to go to kibbutz. Bnei Akiva, they don't so much.
And what do you remember of the Pesach?
Oh, it was very different.
So when you got to Brussels,
Yeah.
it's about an hour journey to Antwerp.
Yes,
Did you go
yes.
straight to Antwerp?
Yes, yes.
And your mother, did she already have an apartment or?
No. We stayed with my grandfather, my aunt, and my uncle, and the family was together in an apartment.
In Antwerp?
In Antwerp, yeah. My mother wasn't married yet. She was before, just before, and then she had to tell me. She did.
It's also quite a traumatic thing
Yeah.
to tell her.
She had to tell me, and I somehow accepted it, but I always thought, and for many years, and if my father didn't die, maybe he is in Russia somewhere, and he comes back and she's married. Many years, many years.
Did they know for sure that he had died? Or?
Yes. It, you could get that in Paris. There's a place where you had to go when they had all the.
Otherwise, your mother couldn't get remarried.
No, of course not. But I, as a child, and he was a wonderful man. My second father. He was like a father. He was a wonderful man. But I even today, many things is finding out about my father and how he was and what he was and my grandfather, and these are part, you don't change that.
So when your mother told you, could you accept it, or were you angry, or?
No, I wasn't angry. I accepted it. Part of it.
And when you first met him?
Well, he was a nice man, but I said he wanted to be more as a father, but I never let him.
And did he have children from his?
No, he had been in camps, and his wife had been taken when he was at the Valdiv, in Paris. There was a day that they took all the Jews, and she was taken then, and he wasn't home. So he tried to get her out, but didn't. For him it was also difficult. He didn't have any children, and when my mother died in Belgium, he came to live with us in Israel. I never left him there.
And your parents, they never had children together?
They couldn't. They wanted. They couldn't. My mother had been with Mengele. That was that.
Did your mother speak about Auschwitz?
No, never. Yeah, sometimes, but not. No, just as if I knew. She used to imply that I knew. So if she said something, I could make up the rest, but I never could because she never told.
And could you ever ask her?
I asked her once for a number, what it was. And she said it's a phone number. Because I forget. Yeah. The only thing was that when they never spoke, and I never asked, that's also part of it. But breakfasts, when we sat together at breakfast, when it happened, they used to tell each other what they dreamt. And that's how I heard things, their dreams. And once I asked him, how was it? He just told me about the shootings and that they shot all these children and they fell into the... I didn't ask many times. It was too difficult to ask.
And which camp was he in?
He worked. He was in, I don't remember about it. I can look at it.
The labor camps, sure. So here you have a picture in 1949 with you and your mom.
Yeah.
And did you go to the wedding?
No.
That's not...
No, they didn't want that. And immediately after the wedding we went to France because he was, before the war, his brothers came from Poland to Nancy. That's a town in France, and he wanted to be near his brothers. So we went to Nancy. I lived in Nancy with them. I went to school there. We lived a few years in Nancy until my mother didn't want anymore to be there. And they made this error to come back to... Yeah, that's in Nancy. That's just after their wedding, maybe a year, maybe during that year. Oh, they were very much in love. I hated it. They kissed in the middle of the street. How dare they? He was a big Zionist, everything about Israel and everything, and then the communists, avoid the communists. And yeah, and that's his brothers, that's him and his brothers, yeah.
And he was kind to you, he was...
Very kind, he was such a good man.
And in this picture?
He was a tailor, and that's in his atelier, in his where he worked.
Where he worked. And this picture?
That's my 10th birthday. I'm in the middle. My mother made it a big thing.
And in France, where you were staying, did you go to the school that you went to?
I went to the Lycée Jeanne d'Arc. We lived, it was difficult to find apartments or places to stay, so my second father, found a place in a street that was people who were workers, all kinds, not a fancy thing. And we lived in that street, and a few houses from where we lived was a school, a primary school. And my mother, no way, she's not going there to school. She's going to a lycée. She's going to more, better, not the work or school. No. She's going. So I went to Lycée Jeanne d'Arc. I was 7. The children in France go to school 6, when they're 6. I was more than 7, and they put me in, I never went to school, so that they put me in first grade. Of course, I didn't know how to write or read or anything. My mother was very angry. Why? She's 7. She should be in another. And she made such a fuss. They put me 2 classes higher. I didn't know to write, read, anything. I didn't know French. I spoke German. So every day I remember coming home and repeating the words that I understood in school and putting it into my head, and that's how I learned French. And then so she had some students who came to help me with homework. So slowly I was coming to it, and I was in school, and my mother thought I was very intelligent. So when she felt that her father was still living in Belgium, and her sister and her brother, when she felt that she had to see her family, she took me out of school and we went to Belgium. She's so intelligent, she'll catch up. So it wasn't so easy, no.
And in the school, with the other Jewish children?
I didn't know. There was the daughter of the rabbi from Nancy, Rav Morali. His daughter was in class with me. I didn't even know her, and I knew her name maybe.
Were they friendly to you, the other children, or?
Well, it was regular. I had children who lived in the same way I got home by foot, and that was that. Well, I didn't make friends. I felt different, and
Did they know that you were Jewish, or it wasn't an issue?
No, it wasn't an issue, because in the Lycée Jeanne d'Arc you had lessons with the rabbi, like the others had with the priest. Jewish children had lessons with the rabbi.
And the rabbi's daughter didn't want to befriend you? Or
I didn't go to that lessons from the rabbi, because my mother said we were Polish and that was French. So I never went to those lessons, so I never knew that the daughter of the rabbi. No, we are Polish, we are Ashkenazi. Yeah, as if she was religious, nothing. And we didn't even eat kosher in Nancy, because there was no kosher meat. There was nothing. It was after the war. And then my mother's sister, she was religious, and my grandfather, and she was very, she was more, her sister was more than her mother. My mother's sister. She was elder, and she looked after her. And she was very religious, and she said, if you want me to come and visit, the house must be kosher. I'm not coming. And then everything was out, everything was made kosher, and the meat came from Metz, which was a town not far away. They sent it by car, and I had to go and fetch the meat and the whole thing.
So there's a picture here with your mother and your. Did you call him? What did you call your mother's husband? Papa. And you look very happy in this picture.
Oh, he was a nice man. He was a very nice man. It's me. It's not him.
And it looked a very nice town that you were staying in.
Yeah, it's a lovely town. It's a very nice town.
And you, in the time that you were there, did you ever have any anti-Jewish feeling, or did people know you were Jewish?
People knew.
But it wasn't an issue.
It was too near the war. People still were shocked, and so they didn't. No, no, never. I had non-Jewish friends, my neighbor's friends, Marie-Claire, she was my friend, and I went to see her at home, and she came to me, and there was no problem.
And when did you go back to Belgium?
Well, first of all, we stayed in Nancy, and then I was introduced to a Jewish Zionist organization for youth, and very Zionistic, and Israel, and all that. And also 48, we were in France, and I remember that we went to a big room, and we heard, and it was the cinema, and we saw how the Europeans said yes or no to Israel, and then at the end, everybody was standing up, and yeah. That's 48. That was in Nancy. I was in Nancy. And then the first Israeli diplomat came to Nancy to visit the Jewish community, and I was chosen to sing him a song in Hebrew, which I didn't know. I said, Be'arvot HaNegev. Do you know that song? It's a very sad song.
Can you sing? Do you still remember it?
Yeah. Be'arvot HaNegev.
Oh, sure. Oh, you can't sing. It's so lovely.
I don't remember the word. Ish Magen Nafal. Be'arvot HaNegev. מתנוצץ הטל בערבות הנגב, איש מגן נפל.
Beautiful song.
Yeah, and I didn't understand the words at all. I didn't know Hebrew. And they said, you have to sing the song and cry. I was 8. So I sang the song and I cried. Yeah, that was just 48 after the first diplomat who came from Israel to France came also to.
And when you were in France, during the December, you would go back to Switzerland?
Yes,
to the family?
Yeah, sure. They came to visit also. They wanted to know if it was okay, if where I had landed was okay. They came
It's quite remarkable, it really is.
They wanted to make sure. And she did.
And she got on well, she got on okay with your mother?
Well, she always was a very nice and quiet person, and she wouldn't do anything to hurt her or feelings or anything. She was very, very sensitive and very fine. She wouldn't hurt her. She wouldn't. So they came and they stayed in Nancy. There is a place called Place Stanislas, a very nice place. It was from the king, Stanislas, yes, that's it. So there was a hotel there, and they were in the hotel, and we lived not far away. And I remember that my mother made a big dinner at home, and so to show that everything was normal and good, and that she loved me, and that everything was okay. Yeah. That's when I was the youngest hostess at the fair in Brussels, 1906. When was it? The world.
In 58.
58, yeah. That was the World Fair in Brussels, and I was the youngest hostess.
And in this picture in 54?
That's Bnei Akiva, Lag BaOmer in Brussels. All the Tnuot Noah were in Lag BaOmer together, and I was in Bnei Akiva then.
And when you went back to Belgium, did you stay in Antwerp or did you go to Brussels?
When I stayed. No, that's only because of Lag BaOmer. We were all in Brussels. All the Tnuot Noah.
But you were staying in Antwerp?
In Antwerp, yeah.
When did you go back to Antwerp?
I was 11, so it was 51.
And did you have an apartment with your parents?
First I lived with my aunt, because my mother decided it was finished. I wasn't getting a good enough Jewish education or Jewish life, because it was too goyish, and she didn't want me to be there, and so she made, and it was a big mistake. It was a big mistake, but would you like to drink? I'm talking and talking. So my mother decided, and she until my father said, okay. He was a tailor. Well, in Antwerp he hadn't any connections, and in Brussels also no connections. He couldn't make it, and he was very unhappy there. So he went into diamonds to be a makler, buying, selling, which wasn't his style at all. That was not him, and he was not happy. I'm sure he wasn't happy, but my mother said it was for me, and she wanted for me, and that was it. And we went to live in Antwerp. I went alone. I stayed with my aunt. I was put into Jewish school, Tarkmoni.
Tarkmoni, yeah.
And
were you happy in the school?
It was my school. I didn't think about it. I wouldn't go to a goyish school, no. That was.
And did you make friends in Tarkmoni?
Well, it was like either Shomer HaTzair or Bnei Akiva, and since I was Bnei Akiva, I was with this group, and that was it. I mean, no special friends. My best friend was Shomer HaTzair, because our fathers had been friends before the war, and my mothers were, and her mothers were friends, but I didn't have special friends.
Were most of the children also from the Shoah,
yes,
survivors?
In my class there was not one child with both parents. Not one.
Not one?
No.
And did you speak to each other about the Shoah?
No, nobody did.
Nobody did?
No. But I was very bad. I had a lot of problems, because all these children had been in Gan already in Tarkmoni, and in Tarkmoni they spoke Hebrew. The Gananot spoke Hebrew with the children, so they know Hebrew, and I didn't. And they had two menahalim, they had two directors, a Jewish director who came from Israel, and a non-Jewish director. And the Jewish director spoke only Hebrew. Whenever he came to speak, he spoke only Hebrew. And so it was very difficult. I was 11, and they put me in Kita Aleph for Hebrew, which I wasn't very happy. Yeah, and that's how it was. And besides praying in the morning, also I knew how to read a little bit, not so well, but I knew how to read my prayers in the morning, so at least that. And that was that. I mean, I went to school.
But did you make friends easily, or did you make any very good friends that
No.
you...
Never. I had a very good friend in Switzerland, which I still have. She's from Gan. We are friends from Gan.
And the teachers at Takamoni, were they understanding or were they kind?
No, there were Flemish-speaking teachers going, most of them. Only the Hebrew teachers were from Israel.
And which shul did you go to? The Van der Nest shul?
Yeah, Van der Nest, yeah. That's the shul. My grandfather had another shul that he went during the week. And it was called, I never understood what it was. It was called Menachem Availem. And I never understood what it meant until I spoke Hebrew. Menachem Avelim. Yes, my grandfather went there during the week, and I don't know, he had a place in the Van der Nestlai, but he was also going there.
And do you remember any of the Rabbonim, any of the rabbis or the Chazanim?
No, Rav Medalia was the Rav when I was there, and Rav, no.
But were you happy in Antwerp?
Oh yeah, I liked it. I liked it because it was my identity. I could be me. That was my identity, that I was belonging. The school and the Bnei Akiva, and it was a world that I belonged to, and I didn't have to look for something.
And when your mother came with her husband, did they had an apartment?
Yes. We lived in a place called Berchem. There is what's her name? I don't remember her name. She lives in Jerusalem. Lived nearby. Yeah, we lived there. It was a
Did
very
you
simple.
know the Ringer family?
Yeah, Ringer. They lived there. The Ringer lived there. And the one that lives now in Jerusalem, her sister, they were both in Yesodei Torah. They weren't in Tachkamoni. They were more religious. I remember the two of them. They were like the creme de la creme.
It's Rachel and Annika.
Yeah. But they didn't look at me. I knew they existed.
But I think they were older. They were actually older as
They
well.
were older. They were in Yesodei Torah, and then they became teachers there, and yeah. The funny part was Yesodei Torah in Tachkamoni, you know. We were, at the end of the year, because of the prize probably, we were together in the same theater, all the children from both schools. And each school sang. Yesodei Torah sang Ani Mamin, and we sang Hatikva. That was so funny when I think about it. Yeah.
And how long did you stay in Antwerp?
I married in 1963.
So, and you met your husband in Antwerp?
No, in Knokke. I I stayed in Antwerp till 60. I married in 63. I met my husband on Shavuot 62. Yeah.
Where was he from, your husband?
From Basel. Well, he was not from Basel. He was from Lugano. That's where he was born.
So he never went through the Shoah or had...
No, he was in Switzerland. He was in Switzerland. He was a student. He went to yeshiva in England, and then he went to yeshiva in Montreux with, and then the yeshiva came to Israel, from Montreux to Israel, and then he went every Friday morning to his yeshiva in Jerusalem. And the first time he went, he said, I came in, I stood there, and the rabbi came in, and he looked at me and he said, Fuchs, you're also here. He remembered him from his yeshiva.
So here's such a lovely picture. This is...
That's us. Yeah, I have to done the things.
So you got married in 63 in Antwerp. Was it in the shul?
Yes, at the Van der Nestlai. We got married in the Van der Nestlai.
And who was the rabbi who officiated? Do you remember?
There was no rabbi, there was a dayan.
A dayan.
There was Rav Medalia had died, and in between there was a dayan until they got another rabbi, a Rav. Forget names.
And in the picture,
what?
This is such a lovely picture.
My mother and my stepfather and most my husband's parents.
And you got on very well with your husband's parents?
Well, pachot o yoter.
And your mother?
And my mother, well, she just stayed away from all of it.
And did the family from Switzerland, did they come to the wedding?
No, just Gretli came. Gretli came.
They must have been very happy for you.
Yeah, I went back twice a year there, all the time. And one day she called me and she said, you have to promise something. So you have to promise me something. I said, what? That you marry a Jewish man.
She said to you?
Yeah. I had to promise. Because it could have been different, because I lived there twice a year and I knew the youth in town, and I could have...
Who made
my war mother.
Your war mother, sure. That you married a Jewish person?
Yes. I had to promise. It was easy not to, because I lived half lives.
You were in both worlds?
Yeah. So, which if my mother had said something like that, I would have just brushed it. When she said it, it was like, there's no question, I will do what she said.
And you promised her?
Yeah, sure.
And how did your husband get on with her?
Oh, very well. Do you know, Fuchs is somebody kills animals?
A hunter?
A hunter. Fuchs is a hunter. No, Fuchs is a fox. And the fox generally goes into the farm and takes chickens or Gans.
Yeah.
Gans is the gander. Yeah. So when I got when we decided we were going to get married, I took my husband to Cour because I wanted them to know him. And so we arrived there, and my father there said to my husband, Fuchs, du hast sie ganz gestohlen. He was, he went down to his cellar, took up a special wine. No, he was very happy for me. He thought it was right.
And you invited them for the wedding?
Yes, I did, but they wouldn't come. No, they kept it all separate. When I was there with them, which was easier.
Maybe they felt that they didn't want to interfere, or that this is...
Do you know, when I was married a year. And I used to go every Christmas to Cour. And I thought to myself, what do I do now? I'm married, Jewish man. How can I go to Christmas? How can I tell them that I'm not coming? Then I got a phone call from my war mother, Martha, and she said, you're not coming on Christmas. No question, no, she just told me. Yeah,
but you still kept the connection?
Oh yes, the connection. When we left, and when she died, when my eldest daughter was born, she was a few months when she died. But when I was pregnant, they came to Montreux on holidays, and the whole family was laughing and said, well, generally they go to Italy or to other places. Yeah, Paulette is in Lausanne, so they go to Montreux. Yeah, they came, yes. And I was still theirs, and in Lausanne, we lived in Lausanne, and the nanny that they had for their children lived in Lausanne. So my mother Martha phoned to that nanny, and she said, look, Paulette is in Lausanne, tell her the gynecologist she has to go to. So I went to the gynecologist. We were a young couple, no money, just started. Was the top gynecologist in town, and he had his private clinic, and when you went to him you had to give birth in that clinic. But it all because I was there.
Yes. Such a lovely picture in '66 with your daughters.
Yeah. My eldest daughter works now at Misrad Briut. And she is a doctor. Yeah.
And when did you come to Israel?
We came in 71. When I met my husband, I said, I'm only marrying somebody who is willing to live in Israel. If you're not willing, I'm not getting married.
And this was because of Bnei Akiva, or from your family?
My stepfather was very Zionistic. He was a young man when my mother married, and he was still fighting with the communists on the street, and oy vavoy, and they were against Israel. And he was very much involved, and took me. There were films about Israel once a month in Nancy, and then on Sunday morning, so it took me there, all these films from the Sochnut that came, and so we were, and I was in a Zionistic organization, Dror, even in France I was, and he was, that was it. I mean, there was no question, for me, was no question that I would live in Israel, because my father's family, that's part of my father's story, lived in Israel. All his brothers had made Aliyah, besides the one that was taken by the Germans. They made Aliyah, and they were in kibbutz in Achoresh. They were part of the building of the kibbutz.
Wow.
And so this part of me was very sure. I came to Israel the first time on Machaneh Avodah with Bnei Akiva. And the only thing I wanted is to visit my father's family. And so when we had free, I went to visit my family in Ein HaChoresh. Well, Ein HaChoresh is from Shomer HaTzair, yeah. And my auntie and my father's brother and sister, they didn't know what to do with the food, because I couldn't eat in the Chadar Ochel, so they brought me the food into the Cheder, and their father had been a shochet, I mean, they knew. But I loved it. I loved it so much. When I came to the kibbutz, when I was on my way, there was a place where you had to get down from the bus and then hitchhike. Mm-hmm. And I stood there on the road, and I hitchhiked everybody, and suddenly came a tender, and this guy on the tender said, "Ausubel, come up." And I looked at him. What's that? I don't know this guy. How does he know my name? What's going on? He said, I said to him, "Well, how do you know me?" He said, "Oh, you look like your auntie."
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So I got to Ein HaChoresh on the tender, and I met all my family, my aunt,
and you connected
immediately. And I wouldn't leave. The problem was kashrut and datiyut and what to do on Shabbat. And they knew. I mean, there was no problem. They knew I wasn't going to. So, and I wouldn't leave. I wouldn't go back to Belgium. I was 15. I wouldn't go back to Belgium. But I had to. I came on Machaneh Avodah with Bnei Akiva on a boat, and I had to go back with everybody else on the boat. So I said goodbye. I went to Haifa, and I missed the boat.
Purposely? Or?
Yeah, sure. So I went back to the kibbutz. They didn't know what to do with me. They really didn't know what to do with me. On the other hand, they didn't want to send me away. They were... and so the psychology worked. You can't do that to your mother, and until I agreed. So I went back. But I wouldn't. And I said, I will live here. And then I was sure I will live in Israel, for definitely. Because here I'm home. This week I had to tell my grandson why I came. He didn't understand. He said to me, "You came because of Yerushalayim." I said, "No, I didn't come because of Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim, I love Yerushalayim, it's part of Israel and it's part of me, beseder. No, I came because I belong here. and nowhere else. That's the only reason. I don't belong anywhere else, and I will not go any place other than here.
And your mother came to join?
She came to visit. She said it was too difficult. She couldn't. My stepfather would have, but no.
Was it difficult to say goodbye to your mother? Because it would mean that...
No, my mother said goodbye. When I got married, I went to Switzerland. So I wasn't living with my mother anymore, and we still were. My mother felt very much, in her way, she felt very much that we belonged then, and I had this. It was my mother, and she wanted to see my children a lot, and she was angry that I had 3 children. Why do you have 3 children? Cats can also do that. That was her. But she loved them very much, and we came to Belgium, and she saw the children, and she loved them, and even she took even one of my daughters to Antwerp for a while, for a little, and she wouldn't give her back.
And then when your mother passed away, her husband came to...
I told him. First he said, no, I don't want to live with you. And because he had been so much involved with the Zionist organization, they told him, he had even a paper, that he would get a place, special place. We went to look at the place, and we decided no. And then he said, well, then I'll take a flat, which I wasn't very happy, because it wasn't just next to us, and I was afraid he was alone, and he wasn't young and not healthy. And then he saw himself that it wasn't ideal, so we had another house next to us that was free. So he went there, and that wasn't either, so he lived with us. That wasn't fun. He didn't want. I immediately said, you're going to live with us. No, he wants his own flat. So, okay. And then he lived with us, and he was sick. He had Parkinson's, he had all kinds of problems.
But you looked after him?
Yes, sure. And Kupat Cholim had been fantastic to him. Fantastic. I never thought they would help in such a way. They were very, very good. I asked once, how come we get all that? He said, you took him in, Magia lach. Yeah, they were very good. And he was happy here. Then my mother-in-law passed, and then my father-in-law came to live with us.
Wow. That's incredible.
Why? We were only children. My husband was an only child. I was an only child. So who should look after our parents? Only us.
And the family in Switzerland, you kept in touch with the family?
With my brother, I did, and with Mathilde, the youngest one. And
when the mother passed away, were you at the funeral?
Yes, I was at the funeral. Jessica, my eldest daughter, was 3 months old. Yes, I came to the funeral. I even...
Wow.
I was even put in the testament.
They will?
Yeah. They put me in as a child. Well, I didn't get a lot, but that's not the point. The
They
point is
recognized
that
you as one of the children.
yeah. Yeah, that's how I got this, and some more things.
So this is the original chair.
Yeah.
Paulette, it's just, your story is, your life is just...
It's a bit different.
It's incredible.
Yes, I try, when I give my Zikaron de Salon, I try to make understand why Israel, why it is so important after all what we went through, to understand that that's what she said to me, my war mother, that everybody belongs to somewhere, and that's where he belongs to, and he has to be there. You can't just go. And I always have this feeling that Jews were like guests in other places, and they overstood their time, like a guest can be a little bit. And you are a friend and you are a guest. After a while, the people in the place don't like to have guests too long, and that's what we did. We were too long. Okay, we didn't have anything. We didn't have anything. No place to go, but still, that's what happened. You never became, they say, in France, they say Rashi is a French philosopher, belongs to France, he wrote French. True, he wrote French and not Latin. His ideas he gave in French, and he felt very French. True, but he didn't belong there. He doesn't belong there. Belongs here. And I wanted my girls to learn Arabic. That was my biggest wish. They didn't do it because I think we should speak the language of our neighbors, and we don't. In Europe, Jews speak many languages, speak Italian, French, German, and here they don't speak Arabic, which isn't right.
There are some schools where they do teach it, and it's very low
they
level.
don't teach. They teach literature. They don't teach the daily language.
Paulette, I have to ask, you've already given such a beautiful message, but is there something that you can add for the future generations? What message do you impart?
Not to think that elsewhere it's better. It's never better elsewhere. It's here. And just make it work. Don't hate each other. That's the worst. This hatred, what's happening today.
There's a lot of division.
And I understand that we don't think alike, that we have ideas, that we think that things should be different. Okay, talk about it, but hate? And then it's like Israel is like, you should love Israel like you love your children. There are children that don't behave, and you still love them, and you try to change them, or you try to do better. That's how you should love this country. That's how it is. You're like a mother or a father, and those are your children, and they are yours, and look after them.
Oh, that is such a beaut. Paulette, I just want to thank you. I can just thank you, Paulette. This has been.
I'm sorry if I was too long-winded.
This has been. There are really, and I often say it, but it's so true. There are no words to thank you enough. I think what happened to you and your story and how you are so incredibly positive and your outlook on life is just remarkable. It's incredible because you really went through so much, and look, you're so positive and you have such an amazing outlook and perspective on life. Your war mother, in my opinion, and I think everybody who's going to be watching this, is the epitome of Chasidei Matalam.
Yeah, she is.
She was a very special lady.
She was.
And I think she had such a profound influence on your life and the way that you are. A lot is because of her as well.
Oh yes, sure. Do you know, I did a stage in a hospital, in a Catholic hospital with nuns, and I was already 21 or something, and so there I was in that hospital, and I said I had to see what I can do about Shabbat. So I went to see Mother Superior, and I said to her, look, I'm Jewish, and I don't work on Saturday, and in the winter I won't even be able to work on Friday afternoon. I'm ready to work on Sunday instead. And so she opened her arms. She said, my dear child, I'm so happy that at such a young age you're looking after your religion.
That is so beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's easy.
Wow. Well, I cannot thank you enough.
She was special.
Paulette, really, you are amazing. You should just have mazel bracha.